So I'm really, really happy that you joined today with us here. As you know, we discussed digitalization and what it means for the businesses with female thought leaders and how to implement the digital strategy. And if you look back, and I'm super proud of this, we had Katrin Suder, as you remember. I'm just doing a little flashback for the people who join me for the first time, from the German Digital Council, talking about digitalization in crisis time. And the second one, and I wasn't there, so I had a wonderful colleague of mine from the Atlantik-Brücke moderating this, Claudia Nehmert and Victoria Espinel, on the topic of smart cities. And today we would like to focus on the role of startups to help digitize our key industry and both sides of the Atlantic. So normally everybody would say, yes, that's pretty obvious that we need startup to help us to digitize. But when you look at the Female Founders Monitor of 2020, we have learned something that I found pretty frustrating. Female founders, and that's probably in the nature and the DNA of us, are more likely to embrace the social and the sustainable business models compared to the male founders. And at this also an observation was from this Founders Monitor that female founders drive innovation also in the healthcare system. 60.7% of female teams focus on medicine and healthcare, and only 6.5% of the male teams. So you see, we have that more social touch to us and the sustainable business and the healthcare business. But we have also learned that female teams are significantly less likely to receive large amounts of funding, and they are not getting the same attention, unfortunately, from VCs and the business angels. And I have two wonderful female who probably going to nod their head and are going to confirm to that. And while in the US, and we have a wonderful person from the US today with us, the share of female founders has grown to 28%. In 2020, the number still stands 15.7% in Germany. And this is very unfortunate. 15.15, not 50, 15.7% in Germany. This is pretty unfortunate. So we want to discuss how we can move the needle. We're not going to boil the ocean in this team here. Let me be very clear, but we want to see how we can move the needle to drive startup innovation in critical industry and enable female founders. That's the topic today. And I'm really excited, I have two outstanding entrepreneurs today to discuss the challenges and opportunity in their respective business startups that they created, and they're super, super successful. I envy them a little bit, I have to say, because they're their own bosses. So first of the speakers will give us a short intro and overview of their business, and I will moderate that a little bit. And then, as you know, the active parts will start for you. We're going to go into two groups this time that we're going to discuss basically, and we have questions to the panelists also, of course, later. They're going to help us to answer that questions, but I'm going to come to the flow a little bit later. But already 15 minutes is on you to discuss in smaller group to make this really, really interactive. So enough of talking from Angie. I want to welcome our very first founder and CEO of Right-Based on Science, a startup based in Frankfurt, Germany, providing companies with climate-related data and supporting their strategy and decision-making process. And I've had the pleasure to be on a panel with Hannah. We were both pretty nervous, at least I was nervous, on TV. Talking about that sustainability and how it works, in the field of economy, and what does it mean for the future. And this is the first time I met Hannah. So Hannah, I'm very, very happy that you're joining the team here today. So a warm welcome to you.
Thank you very much. It's really a pleasure to be with you.
Great, and we're going to hear more of you a little bit later. And then we have somebody who got up a little early today. I don't know, it's 8 o'clock, I think. From San Francisco, it's Laura Behrens Wu, the co-founder and CEO of Shippo, a San Francisco-based startup. And valued at, I don't know, you might correct this later, Laura, at 1 billion as of June 2021. That's huge. That's really massive. And Laura, also super, super happy to have you here today with us. Thanks for joining.
Thanks for having me. And even though I'm US based, like I'm originally from Germany, I grew up in Germany. My parents are German. I have a German passport. So I'm really happy to be with this group of German entrepreneurs and just have a chat. So the elevator pitch is that we power shipping for e-commerce companies. And what that means in more detail is that like our customers are e-commerce businesses and every single e-commerce store needs to ship. So instead of like consumers walking into a store to buy an item, you've got stores on the internet, consumers are buying things on the internet, and then the items need to arrive at your doorstep. And the way of arriving there, it's done by parcel delivery. So shipping providers are doing that. And we're building the software component for this. The shipping is still being done by DHL, FedEx, UPS, all of the different shipping providers, but we're building the software that manages to process, making sure that e-commerce businesses show the right shipping options at checkout to be competitive with the likes of Amazon, making sure that they have all different shipping providers, economies of scale, all the different tools for insurance, tracking, returns, everything on a single platform. We came up with this idea because my co-founder and we actually started an e-commerce store prior to this ourselves. So we're running a small e-commerce business and then just realized that shipping was really difficult for us to figure out. And we thought it shouldn't be that difficult. So roughly like 6 or 7 years ago, we pivoted from an e-commerce business to building shipping software.
Oh, yeah. So Right Based on Science is a provider for climate metrics and software. And we calculate the climate impact of an economic entity, such as a company, a financial portfolio, a country, or a building. And then we express it in a tangible degrees Celsius figure. So we call that temperature alignment. What is the temperature of my company and how does it compare to the 1.5 degree goal of the Paris Climate Agreement? And we're really focused on that. And the mission of Right Based on Science is to create transparency on climate-related risks and opportunities. So what we want is that, for example, talents can see that option 1 for their future employer is a 1.3 degree company and option 2 is a 4.2 degree company. Or that investors can see this company here is 2.3 degrees aligned and the other one is 1.7 degrees aligned. The one has a strategy that makes sure it will be a 1.5 degree company. The other one has a strategy that brings it from 4 degrees to 3 degrees. So that's the kind of transparency that we believe everyone can understand to allocate capital, be it human capital or financial capital, to the right place. To make sure we're really transitioning to a 1.5 degree world. We work both with companies from the real economy and we work with companies from the financial economy and also the real estate sector, because what we want is that they speak all one language when they collaborate on the transition to 1.5 degree alignment. The Paris Climate Agreement is expressed in degrees Celsius figure in degrees Celsius. So we want that companies and financial market actors also speak in degrees Celsius. They speak in temperature when they talk about the transition, when they talk about future proofness. And we're providing the metrics and the steering frameworks for that. Yeah, that's what we do.
The business has 2 different important components, actually 3. Like on the one hand, we're a transactional business. The more our customers ship, the more we ship, and we charge per package. So it's not a contract value, a monthly contract value, it's per package. And that kind of aligns our incentives very well with our customers' incentives. We want them to ship more. We want to help them ship more. And we can benefit from their growth as well. And then secondly, we're a take rate business. And what that means is that we have like one top line metric that is shipping spend coming through the platform. Then we have a take rate on that shipping spend that becomes our net revenue. And that leads me to the next component, which is like economies of scale and the flywheel. The more packages we ship, our costs go down. Like we're able to get the aggregate negotiation power from all of our customers combined and negotiate better rates with the shipping providers. So as our costs go down, our take rate can go up.
So the degrees Celsius, which we call X degree compatibility, short XDC, is calculated by our XDC model. And the XDC model is an economic climate impact model. And because it's an economic climate impact model, we look both at the economic side of the company and the emission side of the company, which means we need data about the gross value added of a company, which is the company specific equivalent to GDP. How much value does a company create, and how many emissions does the company need in order to create that value? Because the XDC model calculates what if everybody operated as emission intensively as the company under consideration, how many emissions would be generated worldwide, and what would be the expected amount of global warming if everybody would be as emission intensively operating as that company under consideration. And once we're having this temperature value, we compare it to a sector-specific target temperature, because ThyssenKrupp, of course, has a different contribution to reaching the 1.5 degree target than, for example, an IT company or an energy company. So that sector-specific details need to be taken into consideration. And this is what we do when we then compare the temperature of a company to a sector-specific target. And then the exciting thing happens, because then the next step to help companies understand those climate-related risks and opportunities is that we put their targets under scrutiny. So they give us their targets and we calculate what if they reached their climate target, what would be the resulting temperature. And if we do this with ThyssenKrupp, for example, I don't know the result, but potentially it would close the gap to the sector-specific target, or it would be insufficient. Usually it's insufficient. And usually the board does not know that the climate strategy and the climate targets are insufficient. And that poses a risk, because the financial markets are now pricing this in. And this is why we need the transparency in a very honest and objective calculation to then detect the measures that really close the gap between where the company stands and where it should be when it wants to be 1.5 degree aligned. And we work with a few companies in hard to abate sectors. So those companies that have really a hard time decarbonizing. And you can see that they actually need to change their business model in order to be 1.5 degree aligned. And I think that's exactly what we need to uncover now. This is what we need to start talking about, and our metrics are guiding that conversation.
So we've raised a few rounds of financings. I actually don't remember how many. It's been, I mean, it's a full-time job when we go fundraise. A full-time job, meaning that like for 4 to 6 weeks, I do nothing else but fundraising. And it is like highly planned out in the sense that like, it is really important to meet all of the investors like roughly at the same time. So instead of like having one coffee meeting this week, another coffee meeting that week, like I'm doing a week full of like 30 investor meetings. And the reason for that is like, you want to make sure that you're creating the kind of process where people know this is competitive. Like investors are only going to make a decision if they know that someone else might make a decision before them. So that's kind of the process we're trying to put people through. They know it's like highly competitive. A bunch of other investors are talking to me right now as well. And I think the interesting part also around the female part, I think, is that we've been mostly raising from insiders. So we found a partner that like a VC, Bessemer Venture Partners, early on in the process. And they just like kept like they keep investing like at every single round, and it's a strong, like it's just a strong relationship that we've built over time, and that's been extremely helpful. Like overall, I think in terms of fundraising, like pandemic or not pandemic, is like you need a big industry, like a space that's already big, where the TAM is pretty large, where the TAM is ideally still growing, so not a stagnant industry. And then I think it's always like data speaks for itself. Like I think my main point is like VCs, it stands for venture capitalists. They're capitalists at the end of the day. They want to see like numbers growing. And I want to believe, at least, like, it doesn't matter if I'm male or female, if my numbers are doing well, like that's what really matters.
So in terms of funding, we took a very cautious approach, because back then in 2015, people thought we were crazy. Who would be interested in the temperature of a company? Now this is a global standard, so we had the right vision here, and we did a lot of bootstrapping until it was clear that our idea had a value. Then we found people who supported us on an emotional level, who said, you're doing the right thing, this is what we need. So we had a very early round of convertible loans, which is very rare. So we found really friends and supporters that provided us with this round of convertible loans. And then we worked hard to make sure we can show that our business idea has a value. And once we got a certain valuation, we took investors on board. So that way we made sure, the co-founder of Right Based on Science and myself, that we don't lose too much of our share of an idea that people just did not yet understand. People where you need to have the right intuition in order to understand the value. And this is how we build it up to make sure we get the right funding. We don't have VCs on board. We have strategic investors on board who are interested in developing products with us to complement their own offerings. So we have an index provider as a strategic investors, as a strategic investor who is setting up Paris-aligned indices with us. We're having a bank on board as an investor who is going into XDC-linked loans, so supporting companies with lower interest rate and reducing their temperature, because that's lower risk and higher performance. Yeah, that's the kind of investors that we have. And until now, we have not come to the conclusion that VCs are the right source of capital for us. And in terms of talent, yes, that's incredibly difficult. That's the biggest challenge we've been having here in Frankfurt, where you have a war for talent for those people who are good at technology, because you can earn a lot of money here in the financial markets. And I think making sure that you show that the workplace here at Right is highly professional, it's highly challenging, but it's also highly rewarding because it has a very strong meaning. This is what's attractive for people. But of course, you need to prove that this is the case. And I think paying a normal salary from the very start is something that has a high value here, because it shows appreciation, but it also shows, hey, you need to work here as if you were working in a bank where you get a comparable salary. And that lets us raise our ambition and show that we really take it serious, and that makes us attractive. So this is how we solve this problem. Yeah.
Thank you so much, Laura, and also Hannah, for giving us so much insight into your business and also the strategy, how to get money, how to get talent, how to stay on the culture of entrepreneurship, even though the pandemic is making it a little difficult for us.